So glad to be here with you, Deborah, and have this conversation today to kind of re-energize myself and invite you into now what again. You've been a part of the flow and the evolution, the emergence of it, going all the way back to the beginning, early, I think, in March of last year. Um, and I'm excited to see what happens in this one. And you've been talking about synchronicity and this idea of a synchronicity swimming pool, which is just such an interesting metaphor. So I thought I would tell you this story of this, what at the time was kind of a mind-blowing set of synchronicities to me. And we'll see how much of that still I can even recollect and identify. But it all happened um, as a result of my going to an open space event in New York City called Opening Space for Peace and High Performance over MLK weekend back in January. So it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday event. And I'm driving into the city. I live an hour, 15 minutes away, driving in Friday morning. And often I'm going to have a longish drive. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll, use this as an opportunity to get on the phone with somebody and check in with them. So I think to call my good friend Gary Horvitz, and that actually had he had had it was a particularly touching moment in the previous edition of Now What. It was just a private conversation between the two of us that to me felt like it was part of Now What. And he was seriously ill when I spoke to him. He was in the hospital, literally receiving a blood transfusion, one of a series of 8 of these that he needed for this. Oh my gosh, right? I told you about Gary. Remember, he had, so this was a blood disorder, like no platelets and no white blood cells. His immune system attacking his bone marrow.
Oh,
The same
because of,
thing.
yeah, that happened to my dog.
The same thing that happened to your dog and my dog, all at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, you did.
I mean, or a different, slight similar version of that kind of disorder. So he
Yeah,
nearly died from this, and I'm
yeah,
talking to
you
him.
did. I remember.
Yeah, that's so interesting that even when we decided to make this recording, I'd forgotten that
That
we
there
had that
was.
level of connection to this story. So we had this just beautiful conversation, like that neither of us had really quite experienced anything like it before, and which he described as a kind of a spiritual transfusion.
Oh,
And in the middle of it, one of the things I was doing a lot during the last edition of Now What was listening to music together with people, typically drawn from the collaborative playlist, these different songs that people had suggested. And there were a few that were kind of running through my head because I'm listening to it a lot. And I said, well, I'll give you a choice. And I named 3, and the one that just the title of it drew him in was called The Lost Words Blessing. And so we listened to that. And it was just really moving. It's like a prayer. It's like a lullaby. It's a wonderful piece of music. There's a whole story around that. And one of the ones that really came alive for me that I had no idea, was new music to me. And so I called Gary up. That was back in like November. Fast forward to, and I went down and visited him too in North Carolina in December. Fast forward to January 14th or something like that. I'm driving to New York City. As I get ready to get in the car, I send Gary a text saying, "Hey, do you want to hop on the phone?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'll call you in 10 minutes." So I'm like, "Okay, I'll just put on the Being Fully Human playlist in the meantime on shuffle, random, whatever." Of course, that song comes up, and then Gary comes on, and we have a wonderful conversation on the way in. Um, and he somehow winds up talking about um, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief. Comes up in his conversation, and then I get to the open space on Friday, and I go to a session, and somehow the conversation, that the subject of dark matter and dark energy comes up, and how it was in the context of people believing that there's sort of unlimited energy, alternative energy sources that have something to do with those phenomena in physics. And there was this guy Tom Brown who was talking about it, and that didn't connect to anything at the time. Just that happened that day. And so then fast forward to the next day, Saturday, I'm I decided to listen to that song again. And there's a phrase in there, sing your heart to all dark matter is one of the lines in the song that I hadn't fully taken in the lyrics to the song, and I like stopped. It's like I'm gonna read them. Let me just really look at this. And there's that line. It's like, oh wow, that's interesting. These things are just interweaving in some way, and isn't that strange? And and so I say that there's on Saturdays. On the Saturday morning in open space, you start with sort of everybody sits in a circle and you do morning news, and then you all go off into different breakout groups and you come back for evening news. So I shared that I'd had this interesting synchronistic experience and around dark matter showing up in this conversation after this thing with this song and Gary and whatever, and wasn't that at the time. There may have been another synchronicity that happened too. I was in this space where this stuff was going on. The next thing that happened in the open space, and this is a tradition every year, this has been going on for 20 years or so, this event, is that the creator of open space technology, this wonderful group process, comes on Zoom. He used to come in person, but Harrison Owen is just getting up in years, but he's on this giant Zoom screen and he gives us a little kind of conversation starter for the day. He talks to us about his take on the world and on the theme of this open space, which is called Opening Space for Peace and High Performance. Which he kind of defines as being about managing conflict in a generative way. That real peace isn't that there's no conflict, and real high performance isn't that there's no conflict, or it isn't whatever. It's there's something connecting those two things that seem very different. So anyway, Harrison comes on and he starts talking about dark matter and dark energy and this, what this means for our, how little we know about the universe, because the physicists tell us that most of the energy out there and most of the stuff out there is just this dark stuff. We don't really even know what it is. We just know it has to exist because we can't explain everything else without it. So so the whole group at this point is like going, what did that just happen? I mentioned it in the circle and then here comes Harrison talking about it, right? Isn't that just completely bizarre? And I think that was the biggest piece to it all. There was kind of a little echo beyond that where I decided, okay, I need to call a session for the open space about this song, and we'll listen to the song together and we'll read the lyrics and we'll just talk and we'll see what happens. And so I did that, and it was a beautiful session. And at one point, or maybe I'm confusing two sessions, maybe it was a third session, maybe I had done that, and that was also part of why, maybe that's where I saw the dark matter. Maybe that was on Friday that I did that. I think that's what happened. I called the session on Friday because it was just so resonant. Whatever.
It was
Then we
energy.
were
You
doing,
felt the energy.
yeah, but then I called another session that we just called the Now What Oracle, and this was a game I had invented for the closing party in the last edition of Now What, and we'll play it again now, just with some of the information from people's profiles that they put up when they register, and we can go onto the map and grab this. So basically, the game is you ask a question, like you're doing a tarot reading or something like that. You were just talking about tarot. You think of a question, and then the other people participating will, without knowing your question, they will go into, in the case of this one, it was the harvests from the conversations in Now What. In this new one, we're not going to harvest in quite the same way. So we'll just go to the profiles, and within them there'll be, so we were looking for a song, we were looking for a short statement or quote, and a resource. And so randomly people were finding, those things, and then we'd say, okay, we got our stuff. What's the question? You'd ask the question, and then we'd look at what those things tell us and answer, right? And so we did that, and one of the things that came up was a clip of the guy who had been talking about dark matter, dark energy in that first session on Friday, from an event that had happened back in October, that was part of where the World Open Space on Open Space was a conference happening then. And Now What landed on the ground there and kind of interwove with that. And so we had a video from that session that was in the video playlist. So that was the other thing, right? There were four things. You'd look at a video, a song, a resource, and a quote.
And someone in advance, before knowing the question, picked that video.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Pick that video just randomly. It's like, just pick a number. I think actually in this case, the person who asked the question, the way we did is just, all right, there's 32 videos, just pick a number between 1 and 32. And then, all right, there's 8 minutes to this video, pick a minute. So it was that kind of thing, and it turned out to be Tom Brown 3 months ago saying some stuff that was highly relevant to the person's question at the time, but he was also interwoven into the whole thing because he was the one who'd been talking about dark matter and dark energy on Friday. So that was kind of a little synchronistic
Oh,
echo, I
interesting.
guess, of the whole thing that happened. Yeah, so it was. That's my little story of being diving into the synchronicity swimming pool, uh, finding myself swimming in one without knowing that's what was going to be happening.
Jung talks about this all the time, is that our minds, our brains are attuned to receive so much information, and it's our ability to pay attention, to say, to feel that urge, and to notice these interconnections, like you were, the conversation with your friend who was deathly ill, the song that you shared, um, that it was emerging through you, and that
And it's
you
more
were
than
the vector.
information, right? Or it's not information in sort of the materialist notion of scientific data, because these things defy normal notions of causality. Or we just say they're
Absolutely.
coincidences, but is the universe full of this level of coincidence? That seems not a sufficient explanation.
It doesn't seem a sufficient explanation, but if you look at Alan Watts talks about consciousness, our conscious awareness, he says, is mostly like a radar. It's a wonderful ability we have, and it's meant to scan our environment. But it's this thing that shoots out our awareness, and we have the ability to recognize things on the horizon, and we can say that's a danger, that's a danger. It's a troubleshooter. So what we have honed, what we have become really, really, um, what we cling to as human beings, able to think and be conscious of our world, is our ability, like a bat sending out its echo and relocating, and then we believe we're this little band of consciousness that's always scanning our environment looking for danger. So we're always hyper aware to danger, 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 and problem, problem, problem. But there's other bandwidths all around us and in us that we forget to pay attention to. And Alan Watts and many others talk about how our brain pays attention to everything. And when we can quiet down the troubleshooter, which we usually call the ego, this narrow band of conscious attention, which is amazing and has helped us figure out so many things about our world, and create amazing things in our world, but has also ignored critical things that is breaking our world. When we listen to these other sources of consciousness that are also at our disposal, then these amazing moments happen, like what you experienced. And you start to see how interwoven you are to your friend, to the group you are participating with, and to this idea of what is dark matter. Also, what is, other people might call it dark consciousness, dark light,
Well,
um,
that's part of sort of,
dark matter.
that's the story I've been telling myself about these synchronicities, is that the fact that we know so little about how the universe really operates, like what it's made of, and what the energies are that flow through it, um, as well as some of the weirdnesses we've discovered about the way it is, suggests that it's possible that we are, that causality and time and all this stuff just really is very different from the sort of Newtonian notions we have. And lots of people have been saying this for a while. There was that famous movie, What the Bleep Do We Know Anyway, that took that to a real extreme and said you can literally create the reality you want. And I do not subscribe to that. I do not think I could step in front of a moving train and make it
Stop
not
it.
reality with my powers of thought. Um, but there's something going on where it seems to me it's not just that I'm sensing what is so, but I'm actually influencing it with my attention in some way, it would seem. Right? I didn't know that Harrison Owen was going to talk about this thing, and he didn't know that I talked about it, and yet that happened in And it wasn't just even that moment, but there was this whole series echoes around somehow this entanglement taking place, related to this idea and these relationships between people. So anyway, yeah.
And it's important. I think everything that you are weaving at that moment, you're going to pay attention. Just like I told
Well,
you,
that's
like
the thing, right? Yeah.
anytime someone brings up dark energy, dark matter, I'm going to pay attention
Well, do
because
you see, does it show up again? And that's how we got into this conversation, and I decided to tell you the story, was that we were both saying how noticing synchronicities, opening ourselves up to that, was giving us confirmation, of being on the right path when maybe it didn't feel
there's
like it.
no way to know it.
Even those
We're getting
messages,
no external feedback
right?
at
But then
all.
you,
Like
right.
everything's telling us we're failures and we're getting no physical external feedback. And yet there's some invisible echo somewhere that's pushing us forward. And it is gonna it doesn't mean it's gonna be easy. It probably is gonna be the hard because we're doing something in the dark. We're in a dark room and we're finding a way forward without any light. Like we're bringing the light through our mind. Our mind has to light up the room, and it goes out. It's very fragile light. It can go out, and we're left in the dark, and we have to reignite it. And that's where I think the synchronicities are like these sparks that when we pay attention, we can kind of coalesce them. We can bring them. We can reunify what might have been fractured back into the light of our little individual consciousness and give us the energy to keep going forward, even though we don't know the way.
And maybe it only seems fractured because we're not paying attention for whatever reasons to our deep interconnectedness and interbeing.
Alan Watts would absolutely say that. He would absolutely say it is the cloak of Western civilization thinking that we've put around ourselves, that now we believe we're just this little egg and everyone else is separate, and cracking that shell now is a very painful thing to do because we feel vulnerable, unsafe, unsecure. We might even feel like we're going crazy because that's our egg of safety. That's how we've told the world works. But then when you get to individuals like our age, we see that everything we were told doesn't necessarily mean that our lives are going to work out. Like everything I was told to do and I did do didn't work. It didn't work at all.
And what does it mean for things to work? I mean, some of the stuff that works the best by the metrics that we're taught matter, like how much money it makes, are having the worst consequences.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it didn't. I'm not successful by society's standards, but maybe we need a different measure of success. So what you're doing, what I'm doing, we're not being validated externally right now because
Well, now, yeah. So, I mean, now what has been a validation for me on certain levels, and I'm excited about the upcoming edition, and it's certainly part of the declaration of possibility for Now What, is that if we come together, if a group of us ground our collective intentions for gathering in a deep knowing of, this is the phrase I have written down in the actual declaration, we ground our work in a deep knowing of the sacredness, interdependence, and interconnectedness of all life.
mhm.
So that's I think the possibility is that the more we're able to do that, the more magic actually does happen, and the more successful we are in the dimensions that really matter, and we'll know and feel that.
You're at, yes, absolutely. You definitely know and feel that. You feel it. It's a physical feeling when someone is truly acting in the moment with graciousness, love, truth. You absolutely feel it. And it is absolutely, I think Alan Watts is absolutely right. It is an energy, and you cannot destroy energy. We are beings of energy. We think we die, but Alan Watts talks about death is just the other side of life. Without death, you wouldn't know you were alive. There would be no opposite.
Certainly, it makes life more precious to know.
It definitely makes life more precious. Yeah, yeah.
We never know how much time we have. Would you like
We
to listen to the song to conclude this?
Yes, I would love to hear that song. I've never heard. I don't think I've heard it. I would love to hear the song.
There's a nice video, so we could watch that together, and I could share it on the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
thing.
I love that's what I do when I go to the gym. I do YouTube with the video.
Pull that
Get
up.
the endorphins going. I'll add it to one of my play streams. My puppy's still sleeping, so that's good.
Okay, I've got it queued up, and I've gotten through the ads.
Oh yeah.
There, it is on another website that doesn't have the ads, but it's not what I found.
Yeah,
There is an
YouTube.
interesting little story, just the very short version
Sorry.
of this, which is maybe there'll be some synchronicities that show up around this too. We can stay attuned to. I just love the story of how this came to be, this music. Um, it's a Scottish poet whose name is escaping me at the moment. Um, saw that in the newest edition of there's a children's version of the Oxford English Dictionary.
Oh, cool.
It's very much shorter. It was like
Yep.
words for kid, and that I guess he saw a story about how there was a whole set of words that got taken out of the most recent edition, maybe 2017, 2016, and a whole
Interesting.
set of words that got added in. And the words that got added in were things like email and bandwidth and broadband and all this techie stuff. And the words that were taken out was a whole set of words that they said, well, these just aren't relevant in children's lives anymore. They're not really, we don't think they're using them. They don't even know what they mean. Dandelion, acorn, otter, starling, all these words from the natural world. And so he was kind of, I think, horrified,
Yeah.
and decided to write a series of poems, but to make a book that he called a book of spells. And he collaborated with an artist who made this wonderful artwork with a lot of gold leaf and stuff in it. And the idea is this book, and it's like this big. I bought it. Beautiful thing. It has the poems and the art, and he's conjuring these words back into the imaginations of children.
Oh, that's
So the book
beautiful.
wins some national award in the UK and gets noticed, and a group of musicians gets inspired and says, we want to create music based on this. So they set some of the poems themselves to music, but they also, and that's what I thought they had done with this
Uh-huh.
one. The whole thing is called The Lost Words, but no, they created a song called The Lost Words Blessing, which has fragments from the book, little bits that they knit and wove together and added a little bit more to
And
create.
so they almost make it into a prayer.
They totally made it into a prayer. Or when I did the open space session, Harold Chinsato said to him it had the quality of a lullaby.
And a lullaby.
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
So I think this video shows you the people, the musicians traveling to this beautiful place on the shore in Scotland or something where they gathered, and some of their process in creating the whole album as you hear the music.
That's a spectacular story.
Yeah.
I would just was told I would have remained ignorant to all of this.
Well, I had no idea. It was only because someone put it on the Now What playlist, and I have to go back and see who was that. I need to thank them again if I haven't properly. I think I did. I think it might have been Shulamith Strauss, who was also part of Climate Change and Consciousness.
Okay.
I think, no. She was the one that did the wonderful, another great piece of music by Kate Tempest, this young rapper and poet. No, who was it? Might have been this woman, Kitty, who showed up on one of the calls. Anyway, here we go. You see it, right?
Uh-huh.
Enter the wild with care, my love, and speak the things you see. Let new names take and root and thrive and grow. And even as you travel far from heather, crag and river, may you, like the little fisher, set the stream alight with glitter. May you enter now as otter, without falter, into water. Look to the sky with care, my love, and speak the things you see. Let new names take and root and thrive and grow. And even as you journey on, past dying stars exploding, like the gilded one in flight, leave your little gifts of light. And in the dead of night, my darling, find the gleaming eye of starling, like the little aviator, sing your heart to all dark matter. Walk through the world with care, my love, and sing the things you see. Let new names take and root and thrive and grow. And even as you stumble through Macher sands eroding, let the fern unfurl your grieving, let the heron still your breathing, let the silky swim you deeper, oh my little silver seeker. Even as the hour grows bleaker, be the singer and the speaker, and in city and in forest, let the larks become your chorus. And where every hope is gone, let the raven call you home.
Oh, that's beautiful. And knowing the stories of the artists and well, it's multifaceted. It's one man that decided to bring back words and collaborated, and then the musicians and the artists. It really that's yeah, it's beautiful. And there's something about music and rhythm and human voices, like we can carry that with us, like these songs, like you said, you suddenly realized sing your heart to old dark matter, and it popped out like a strong vibrant chord when you weren't expecting it. And yet it can flow within us. You sent that to me, that song. I realized after Cider died, and it had a resonance. It had a resonance with grief.
Yeah, there's a line in there, let the fern unfurl your grieving.
Yeah, yeah,
Is one of the words. Then there's a poem about fern. And I think I sent it to you because, again, I was all, this whole blood disorder thing was so resonant and tangled up with, what happened to your dog and my dog and Gary. It was all
and your friend. Yeah,
that was sort of another layer of the synchronicity, right? So it's so interesting. I'd forgotten that all of that was a part of our connection when we decided to.
yeah. And now look, it's come full circle in a whole and on another level, in a different way. with different, deeper connections. We are absolutely supposed to pay attention to these things, to these synchronicities, because they are ushering in. That song is beautiful. Like, it's something you could listen to, you could go to sleep to, and dream a whole other world, following its rhythms. And it's gentle. It's very gentle. It is a bit like a lullaby. It's very gentle.
And the message, I mean, it was also so interesting because the music and the spirit of it caught me without my really quite.
It's not shouting at you. It's not like saying, look at me. It's inviting you, which is so much what you want now what to be. You want it to be an invitation.
Sometimes we need to shout. I'm not, there's some music on that.
Oh, I agree. I agree.
Like that
There's
too.
a lot of noise.
What I try to say is that I didn't look at the words, and then when I went to do that, which so often happens,
Yeah.
It's
There's deeper levels.
It's a very powerful message that I found there. That particularly the last stanza speaks to this time for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's about, the one before ends with sing your heart to all dark matter, but then the third, there's 3 stanzas.
Yeah.
The last one is, walk through the world with care, my love, and sing the things you see.
Yes, I wrote that down too. Sing the things you see.
New names take and root and thrive and grow. They all begin kind of like that. It's
Mm-hmm.
a little different the first line. And
that's beautiful.
even as you stumble past Macher sands eroding, I had to look that up. It's like the sands, like dunes. It's the sand on a beach.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly
constantly changing, shifting, and changing.
And eroding from rising seas and climate change, I think.
Yeah.
Let the fern unfurl your grieving, even as you stumble past Macher sands eroding. I think it goes, let the fern unfurl your grieving, let the heron still your breathing, let the selkie swim you deeper, oh my little silver seeker, even as the hour grows bleaker. Be the singer and the speaker. And in city and in forest, let the larks become your chorus. And when every hope is gone, let the raven call you home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very resonant to me, because one of the things emerging out of this group I created is ravens. And there's a rainbow raven, a white raven. I'll share more of that. That's something I wanted to co-create with the members in this group, that I can feed into Now What.
All right. Well, I look forward to that. Yeah, the raven image is an interesting piece here, and it's traditionally death, but it's more than that, much more, right?
Rebirth.
Yeah.
It's a transition that does seem dark because something does disappear.
I'll share. There's notes from this session too that I can look up and share if you're curious.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'd love it.
From the Oracle, also the Now What Oracle session. I think there's notes from both of those.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So much, Deborah. This was really some
Oh yeah, I know. We tried to connect
that I needed this morning.
Good. Oh gosh, I know what it's like to just feel, I don't know, pummeled. Sometimes you just feel pummeled.
Yeah.
It
wasn't so much that for me in this moment, but it was but I needed a transfusion.
No. I think it's like an inner pummeling. Like you're pummeling yourself.
Maybe that's true.
Exhausted. Just giving up. Just you don't see how to go. You don't see where to take the next step.
Well, I see this mountain to climb that I've sort of said to myself, I'm gonna do it, and I have to do it in a certain period of time because there's something that's gonna happen if I do, collectively. And so I'm looking up there like, oh my God, I don't have much time, and winter's coming, or whatever. Do I have the energy? Have I gotten enough sleep?
Alan Watts says something similar about this. He says when you make a change, when you commit to something new, to a new endeavor, he says he's translating from Taoist and Buddhist ideology, but he makes it so that a Western Judeo-Christian person would easily understand. He says, don't let the devil know what your plans are. Because he says if you let the devil know, like say you want to stop drinking for the next year, he says now up ahead of you are 365 drinkless days, and the devil is going to have a really fun time with that. He says make a bargain with the devil and say, well, let's just try it for this one day. One day is a lot easier than 365 days. And then you get to the next day, it's like, oh, that worked out. Let's just try one more day. He has this beautiful story, but then he relates it to the Taoist belief. I guess there's a Taoist tradition about someone, a monk learning to do the arrow, and he's like, what you have to do is learn how to string the arrow and let go of the bowstring without saying now. I guess maybe in training, you know, the master's like, now, let go of it now.
Oh, the bow shoots itself. That sounds like Zen Buddhism, not.
It is Zen Buddhism.
Yeah.
It is. It's
One of my favorite books as a teenager was Zen and the Art of Archery. That's probably got that story in it or a similar one.
It absolutely would. I think that's like a foundational. It's you have to learn how to be in the moment. When we bring our full presence, our full consciousness to here and now, that's where nothing, there is really no past except for what we choose to remember. There's no future except for what we want to put our hopes for. Everything happens. We are this edge of consciousness constantly burning, and it all happens here and now.
Did you happen to see what YouTube stuck up as the next thing on the video before I stopped it? I was trying to stop it before it switched to something else and a commercial came on, but I was a split second.
I saw the commercial, but I didn't see the song.
Yeah.
Should
I'm
I
going to be in the moment and go eat because I did skip breakfast.
Oh, yes. Telling you there. Yes, your stomach is, yes. I did see that. I was like, well, looks like food.
Well, energy. Well, there's a commercial activist manipulative system coming in to break the spell of this beauty.
Which is valid.
So.
It's completely valid. One must enjoy food. One must eat. No, Ben, thank you so much. Go have breakfast, lunch, enjoy, rest, read.
Thank you for co-creating Now with me in this moment, sort of carrying the energy from the last edition, flowing towards the next one coming up.
Yes.
Not quite.
We're clearing out those rocks.
Yeah. And I'm excited about this.
Sometimes it takes a couple of people to push the boulder out.
I'm excited to dive into the Synchronicity swimming pool. So
that'll be me. I think I have a few friends I can take in that would be. I think there's enough energy about some of the things that we've been talking about that they would be. Yeah, let's meet. Let's Zoom. Yeah.
Find out one day at a time.
Exactly. All right, Ben. Good to see you. Great to connect.